We have the patch 12.1 patch notes for Teamfight Tactics. Notice the 12, we are in a new year, so we get a new patch. We're going to be going over every single changes, and at the very end, I am going to give you my predictions on how this affects the meta. But I'll kind of do that in between as well as I talk through things. So here's a quick summary. They're buffing the things that weren't really played, nerfing the things that were overplayed. So let's just check that out quickly. Imperial, Innovator, Yordle. Yeah, no one really played Imperial or Innovator. People were playing 3 Yordle a lot, but I imagine they're going to be buffing 6 Yordle. Caitlyn, I'm surprised about that. I always thought she was really good. Swain, he's good as an item holder in the mid game, but he does fall off later on, so they'll probably be changing that. Seraphine, I thought Seraphine was pretty good, but I guess as a solo carry, not really. So they're buffing her to help the Innovators more so than the Socialite. Ardent Sensor being buffed, Makeshift Armor, ooh, Makeshift, that's really interesting. I really only use this in Innovators and Bruisers, so it does make sense that they're, again, buffing it as a soft buff to Innovators. Woodland Charm, yeah, no one used that. Spellblade, I actually heard this one was actually performing okay, like middle of the pack, according to Mortdog, but they go ahead and decide to buff it anyways, I'm guessing because no one was taking it. Rapid Fire Cannon, yeah, no one built that in years. Z-Zero Portal, kind of the same thing. And then they're going to be nerfing, well, you guys guessed it, Socialite, Galio, Kaisa, Urgot, Tahm Kench, and Morello Namicon. All the problem children for the last patch and the last month. Ascension is being buffed. Cybernetic Implant, I didn't know this one was that good. It's good for win streaking, I know that, but I didn't know that it was this strong to warrant a nerf when you compare it to everything else being here. Duet, Stand United, probably one of the best augments in the last patch. And then Sunfire Board, I'm guessing they're just changing this because they're changing Morello because they want to keep consistency within the game. No one was really taking Sunfire that much because everyone had a Morello anyways. So interesting to see that there. And of course, Guardian Angel is being nerfed because it was broken on Kaisa. It was good on Urgot, Yon, a lot of other guys. They are going to be adjusting Chemtech again, Malzahar, Trait Link Augments, and Sunfire Cave, and then they are reworking Lifelong Learning, and thank God, because I did not learn anything after using this augment, because it was so horrible, I never took it, so it's like skipping school, you know? But yeah, this augment is probably one of the most fun augments on paper, but no one ever took it because it was really hard to use. So let's see what they did for those. So we are going to skip ahead. So Arcanist Heart now also grants a Swain. Challenger Heart is granting a Quinn instead of a Warwick. This is much better. Quinn is more of like a pure Challenger, whereas Warwick kind of is both a Chemtech and a Challenger. Because Quinn you don't really care too much about for the Mercenary trait. Though it would be interesting to see. Let's say you get a Gangplank drop and an Alawi in the early game. And then now you see Challenger Heart option. You could use that as a free way to get sort of a Mercenary start going, even though you're actually taking the Challenger Heart. Protector no longer grants a Blitzcrank, so I guess it does nothing now. Scholar Heart is being changed from Lysandra to Zyra. Again, I like this a lot, because Lysandra, too good of a unit. Zyra, more so like, more of a pure Scholar, because Zyra, she is a Syndicate, but she's not like one of the main Syndicate people. She's more of the supporting cast. So if you change her to a Scholar as her like main trait identity, I feel like that is a lot better to do. Scrapped Heart now grants a Blitzcrank. Okay, I agree with that. Echo's just too good, right? Twin Shot Heart now also grants a Kog'Maw instead of a Graves. Good there. I hate the 1-cost ones because no one really cares about those, right? Assassin's Crest now also grants a Talon instead of an Echo. Again, good change there because, yeah, he can't be given Echoes around because it's just way too strong, right? Arcanist Crest now also grants a Swain, and then Challenger Crest, Warwick to Quinn, Chemtech, Zac to Warwick. This one, I like Zac a lot because I feel like he is the Chemtech unit. Like, if you think about a Chemtech, you're thinking about Zac probably. So changing it to Warwick is a little bit strange, but it makes sense because, like, they're getting rid of all the 3 costs that are, like, super, super strong for that particular emblem or crest. Imperial Crest is now being changed to Swain from Talon. Mutants no longer grant a Kog'Maw. Scrap Crest now grants a Blitzcrank instead of Echo. And then they're changing Ardent Sensor a little bit. Bonus attack speed being buffed by 10%, Ascension being nerfed by 15. So Ascension's so weird because when fights last long, obviously Ascension's going to be better. But there's some comps that end fights really quickly. For example, like Challengers, they get a lot of resets and then they just kill everything before Ascension actually happens. That's one of those comps where you don't really care too much about Ascension. So I feel like this specific augment is very meta dependent. Everyone was building Guardian Angels last patch. Everyone was playing like tons of frontline with like a Morello to just burn everything down. So Ascension, I feel like it was more of a meta augment rather than like an issue one, but we'll have to see. Cybernetic Implant health is being nerfed by 50 health at every level. Duet is reducing health by 100. I wonder if they actually needed to touch this. Remember, like, it was either one patch or 2 patches ago, they buffed Socialite in like 5 different ways or something like that. Not 5, I'm exaggerating, but they buffed it in a couple of different ways. Now they're nerfing it in a bunch of ways as well. So I wonder if they're going a little too swingy back and forth between the Socialite changes. Maybe like it was just OP because Kaisa was OP. Maybe if the meta was a little different and people were more aggressive, people can't fast 8 for legendaries as much. So it is interesting to see that they do go for a bunch of Socialite nerfs. Granted, this is a very small one. Like, no one really cared about that 100 health that much. The main benefit is getting an additional Socialite hex. Lifelong Learning Reworked now grants scholars 2 ability power after each combat and an additional 2 ability power if they survive combat. So this makes it a lot better, because the weird thing about this before was that it's not just winning the fight as a requirement for getting the extra AP, you also have to survive combat. So you can't just frontline your Lissandra. You have to like put a Heimerdinger in the back and hope he lives at the end of the fight, which granted does happen pretty often, but he's never really the last one targeted because you have someone in the back behind Heimerdinger to kind of bait out the Blitzcrank. So Heimerdinger actually died a lot. So I'm really glad that they changed this so that it's more rewarding, to say the least. Makeshift armor is getting more resistances. It looks like 5 at level 1, 10 at level 2, and 15 at level 3. Good change there. Yeah, this was one of the... Whenever you saw this in your shop or in your augment choices, you're like, oh man, I guess I'll take this if there are no better options. It's like you get 2 bad trait ones that you aren't going, and then you get makeshift armor. You're like, oh man, I guess I'll just take this. So I'm glad they're buffing it a little bit. Portable Forge Armory option. Death's Defiance now grants 20% Omnivamp. Spellblade Empowered Attack Ability Power Scaling after casting is being buffed by 25%. I feel like this is one of those ghost buffs. They do that a lot. Like sometimes they see something actually isn't as bad as it's being perceived, but they just buff it anyways to get people to remember that it exists. I'm guessing that's what they're doing here. Stand United. Yeah, this one. Dude, it's so hard to balance this because changing by 1 ability power and attack damage means so much, because I think, again, it was like last patch that they buffed it to this level and now they're nerfing it back. Completely understandable, but it's just so hard to balance something like this. It depends a lot on the meta. So one way to nerf this indirectly is to make vertical traits a lot better. Vertical meaning going deep into a trait such as like 8 Challenger instead of just going like 2 Challenger, 2 Academy, 2 Scholar, 2 Bodyguard, or something like that. So that's one way to indirectly nerf this, but it's pretty difficult to do that. I wonder what the actual correct levels are, because at 2 and 3, I think no one was taking these before. So just super hard to balance. But of course, if you're going like horizontal traits, such as getting like 1 of each trait, like 2 and 3 would still be fine, right? But it really just depends on the meta. So Sunfire Board, max health burn 20% to 16%, so that is a direct nerf there. I wonder if the duration's being changed, because that also matters too for the healing debuff. So Woodland Charm is being buffed by 100 health. Man, I really don't know why this is a prismatic. I don't care what the data says. If you compare this to everything else, it just feels so much worse. Obviously, early game, it's really good for win streaking. There are a lot of other prismatic augments that are really good for win streaking as well, but are also really good in the late game. So now onto the traits. Let's check it out. Chemtech damage reduction percentage 25 to 20. Health regen is being buffed at 5, 7, and 9 Chemtech. So 3 Chemtechs untouched. 3 Chemtechs actually nerfed because you get less damage reduction and you get an attack speed nerf. And then it seems that 5 is getting more health regen, and 7 and 9 are getting more attack speed at the tail end along with the health regen as well. So they are encouraging kind of going more vertical. So again, like nerfing Stand United but buffing a lot of the verticals might be a little too much, you know, but let's see what they do for everything else. This is just the first trait that we're looking over right now. Imperial Tyrant bonus damage is being changed from 75 and 125 to 80 and 150%. Imperial unit bonus damage is being buffed at 5 Imperial from 75% to 80%. Imperial's just so hard to balance around. It's because last patch, notice how last patch there are almost 0 3-star 3-cost carries. If 3-star 3-cost carries are a thing, you don't need to buff Imperial. But it just so happened in last meta, legendaries were so powerful that no one played 3-cost 3-stars. Like, no one was playing Malzahar 3, no one was playing Samira 3, no one's playing Lissandra 3. So they just changed the power of the legendaries so that no one goes for the legendaries all the time. Or if they just buff 3-cost units, it would fix this issue, in my opinion, rather than like going directly into the Imperial trait. Innovator Mechanical Bear is being buffed by 100. Innovator Mechanical Bear Armor and Magic Resist buffed by 10. That's pretty good. A lot of Innovator buffs. I like Innovators personally, so I am glad to see them getting buffed. Socialite 2 mana regen per second from 5 to 3. Alright, that's fair. So now they have to take a little more damage to kind of make up for that lost mana regen. Syndicate 7 bonus amplification is being buffed from 33% to 50%, so more vertical buffs. Yordle 1 spawn odds is being increased from 60 to 70. 2 costs down 25 to 20, and 3 costs down 15 to 10. That makes, I like this a lot, because ripping a Vex is so stupid, because people just get 2-star Vex on like 2/6, and then I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Yordle mana reduction is being increased from 20% to 25%. Will be interesting to see what cutoffs this changes for items like Spear Shojin or Blue Buff on Heimerdinger or Ziggs. So we'll have to take a look at that and do the math after this. Champions tier 1, maybe too excellent a shot for a 1-cost. They are nerfing Caitlyn by 250. Didn't they say they were buffing her? Yeah, they said they were buffing her. So that's why I was confused. So it makes a lot of sense, right? Because, yeah, they should nerf Caitlyn because she is way too strong for a 1-cost, but no one goes for 3-star Caitlyn, so this isn't really a nerf. They needed to nerf 2-star Caitlyn and keep 3-star Caitlyn the same, in my opinion. Because at 2-star Caitlyn, when you're running snipers, she kills like a 4-cost unit in the backline. So it's like you're trading a 1-cost unit for a 4-cost unit, and she pretty much always gets it. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like 2-star needed the nerf, not 3-star. Champions tier 2, Swain max mana buff. He's now cost 5 mana less. And his Imperial hand healing per enemy hit is being buffed by 25 at 1-star, 20 at 2-star, and 50 at 3-star. Okay, so pretty good Swain buffs there. I feel like they only needed to buff his 3-star. At 2-star, he was really good. I don't know if you guys were playing Swain in the last patch, but obviously he's not in your endgame comp. But if you ever get a 2-star Swain early, even in a patch where everyone's building Morellos, he still completely dominated Stage 3. Stage 4, he was still usable. Obviously, it depends on how strong your lobby was. But I feel like in Stage 3, he was actually unstoppable. So now onto the Tier 3 champions. Heimerdinger, attack range buff. That's great. He no longer has to walk around awkwardly. Malzahar spell damage being nerfed at 1-star, same at 2-star, and buffed at 3-star. Okay, so they are buffing the 3-cost like I was saying before. Champions tier 4, Seraphine max mana buff. She now costs 10 mana less to cast. Seraphine encore damage and healing is also being buffed by 25 at level 1, 50 at level 2, and 200 at level 3. I guess it's fine to buff her since you're nerfing Socialite, so you could still probably do Socialite. It depends on how strong the legendaries are. We're about to get there right after this. Urgot Purge now counts as a basic attack every 3rd shot instead of every 2nd shot. Not really sure what to think about this. Obviously, it affects Runons a bunch. People were building Static Shiv a lot on him lately, so maybe that's going to change. Hurricane's probably still the best damage item on him, and then Guinsoo's, not too many people were playing that, but it's kind of one of those that you just build if it's there, you know? So Champions Tier 5, Galio Critical Strike Slam bonus No, they're nerfing Clapio. So he's losing 10 damage at level 1, 25 at level 2. His 3-stars being the same. I've never hit that, so I can't relate. His Colossal Entrance base stun duration is being increased. Okay, nice. They're not completely killing Galio. Yeah, so he's getting a 0.25 more seconds on his stun at level 1, and it's the same at level 2 and 3. You know, that's actually not a bad change. I'm pretty sure at 2-star you could still do Clapio. It's not going to be as good because he does auto attack a lot. So even though it's only 25 attack damage, like if you attack like, I don't know how many times he attacks, but if he attacks like 30 times in a fight or something like that, it adds up to be a lot, you know? Kaisa health nerfed by 50. That's fair. Icathian Monsoon damage per missile is being nerfed by 10 at 1 star, 10 at 2 star, and the same at 3 star. And this mana nerf for starting mana, that's fair. Because, yeah, applying Morello almost right away, because she's a challenger, right? So she attacks really quickly. It's pretty annoying, right? Tahm Kench Devour damage reduction, 40% to 30%. Okay, whoa. Riot held off on the nerf hammer pretty well. So normally when they nerf things like into the ground, but for Tahm Kench, I feel like this is very fair, you know? Because this makes it so he doesn't farm like a billion items, but they're still giving him a chance to shine, you know? So now onto the items. Guardian Angel, 400 to 250. Okay, this is pretty weird. Now when you revive on a Guardian Angel on Kaisa, you die to Ionic Spark. Am I right? I think so. Morellonomicon true damage burn is being changed from 2.5 per second to 2% per second. So I'm guessing that's the same as a Sunfire board change in terms of like the burn per second. Rapid Fire Cannon total attack speed being buffed by 10%. Yeah, I don't know what to do with this item to make it buildable. You need certain champions that really benefit from the range. That's what you need. Sunfire Cape proc rate from 2.5 per second to 2% per second. So overall, this is like technically unchanged if there are enough targets in range of the Sunfire Cape. And they're essentially just doing this because they like keeping the debuffs consistent. This GA one, I don't know. It feels so useless on like a Jhin now. Because Guardian Angel used to be like an anti-assassin item. When the health is that low, is it still an anti-assassin item? I know you're like, you drop the aggro of like a Shaco attacking you, but you still get hit by random AoEs and you could still potentially die if you don't have lifesteal. So it would be interesting. And if you build Guardian Angel and you need lifesteal, then you have to like build a Bloodthirster or something, you know, and then you only have one other item for damage. So it feels a little weak in terms of that sense for that purpose. But I get it, like Kaisa dominated the meta for a month. This is why you shouldn't have 1 month long patches. And yeah, it's tough to it's tough with this item. It's just a problematic item in my opinion. So ZZ Drop Portal health in stage 2 unchanged, health in stage 3 being buffed by 100, health in stage 4 buffed by 200, and then health in stage 5 buffed by 250. All right, yeah, that makes sense because in stage 2 1500 life is a lot, right? So of course this was always like an early game item, so even with the scaling doesn't really mean that much because damage scales much faster than this health increase per stage. I feel like this item is always going to be either an anti-assassin item or like an ability power tank item because if you're playing an ability power comp, you get a bow. Your only options are really Static Shiv, Titan's Resolve, and ZZ Drop Portal. And yeah, sometimes you just build the item because of that and not because you actually want this. But nothing you can do about that really unless you change the item completely. So small changes, shrug it off, max health, percent regen, buff by 0.5. That's good. I hated this one. This one feels so bad compared to everything else. They might need to buff this more than 3% if I'm being honest with you. Smoke Bomb tooltip now properly reflects a damage reduction applied to excess damage from the instance of damage that triggers the stealth. Smoke Bomb damage reduction being changed from 100% to 80%. So yeah, this was like a very strong assassin one. Its strength is really just dependent on whether assassins are meta or not, you know? Sunfire Board and Weak Spot are no longer mutually exclusive. Traits, that just means that you could get them if you have one or the other. Like, say you take Sunfire Board early, you can get Weak Spot later into the game is what they're saying, whereas before you couldn't. Metamorphosis, attack damage and ability power growth being buffed by 1 to 2 and 2 to 4. They nerfed it down to 1 because it was too strong, but now they're buffing it a little to give it more power. Yeah, this one just really depends on the meta. If everyone's building stacking champions such as like Archangel's Kaisa or just Kaisa in general, of course this one's gonna suck, you know, because it just scales at a worse rate. So once that's out of the meta, this one should be fine, you know. So champions tier 1, Garen being buffed a little bit. That's good. Just 10 attack damage, nothing too crazy. Graves max mana buff, he's being reduced by 20, but his first cast is a little slower. So this is a buff and a nerf, you know? His first cast is going to be a little later, but he might get a second cast off now. I actually don't see Graves second casting a lot, so this actually could be pretty interesting. Alawi Harsh Lesson damage is being increased across all levels. Harsh Healing is also being increased at 3-star, so I guess if you want to do 3-star Alawi, you can. I personally don't think it is a good thing to do, but if you want to try it, go ahead. Casted Null Sphere damage reduction is being changed from 30% to 25%, and Null Sphere damage reduction duration is being increased to 5 seconds instead. Oh, that's pretty good. So they nerf it in one way, buff it in another, so you get a longer duration, but less of a buff. Twisted Fate wildcard damage is being buffed by 10 at rank 1, 15 at rank 2, and then 20 at rank 3. Yeah, he was just a Morello applier before, right? So maybe now when you're playing Arcanist, you could build actual ability power items on him. Kog'Maw barrage damage changed to 888. Talon attack speed being changed from 0.7 to 0.75. And then, wait, really? You're buffing Talon? Isn't Talon like one of the best early game units? So the best way to buff him is just to keep his level 1 and 2 the same and then just buff him at 3-star. Just my thoughts, you know, because in the early game, everyone plays Talon because he's just one of the best early game units. But this buffs that, so that's kind of weird. Zillion Time Bomb slow duration being changed from 3 to 4 seconds. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. No one really plays Zillion at all. It's mainly because his traits are so awkward. So it gives him a little more utility now. Echo parallel convergence damage being buffed. Wait, they're buffing Echo? I guess since you nerf Morello, buffing Echo in a different way makes sense. So, okay, that is good on Riot Games. I'm glad that they are using their brains this time for this specific Echo change. Lysandra Iron Maiden damage. Okay, they're doing the same thing. Okay, that's actually props to them. This is like one of the first times they've done this in like all the patch reviews I've ever read. Normally they like nerf one thing and then they nerf like 10 other things about the same guy. So they're actually like making compensation buffs or champions that make them less reliant on an item, even though they're utility units. Okay, we should all give them a round of applause silently right now. So Samira health being buffed, Vex being buffed as well. Yeah, no one was even going for 3-star Vex. So sorry for the rant on the 3 cost 3 stars, but like, yeah, it's like the meta was just made in such a way so that you don't go for them because legendaries are too strong. So nerfing the legendaries and buffing the 3 costs, it's I feel like you don't need to do both, you know. Orianna max mana buff is being nerfed a little bit, or sorry, buffed a little bit. So now her cast is easier to do for both the first and second cast. Yeah, no, again, any Clockwork unit, they're just so awkward to play because you have to play it in a Jhin comp. So it doesn't really make sense to play them on their own. So these units need to be much stronger, probably more so than this, if I were to guess. Sion Decimating Smash stun duration is being buffed by 0.5 seconds at 1-star. Are they actually buffing Sion? And they're buffing his damage at 1-star? Granted, these aren't that much, but like 0.5 seconds on a CC when he hits your entire board is actually like a lot, you know? Like the damage, this damage doesn't matter, right? But the CC duration is... Why are you buffing Sion? He is really strong, guys. Like, he always hits your entire team. So I don't know why they are doing this. Also, like, he's played in a lot of comps as well. Victor, mana buff. Okay, that's fair because they're nerfing Socialite. And yeah, Victor was one of the weaker 5 costs in the last patch, even though he was still good. Chalice of Power, bonus ability power being buffed by 5%. I wonder what number this needs to be for it to be, like, really good. It really just depends. I think it's because getting bonus AP is really easy in this set because you have, like, all the augments and stuff. Makes it less incentive to build the Chalice of Power and more incentive to build stuff like Blue Buff, Shojin, and Jeweled Gauntlet to get more cast off or to get more like multipliers on your cast. So yeah, I wonder what number this needs to be to make it playable. It's really delicate because once it goes over a certain threshold, everyone's going to be building Chalice and then it's going to be like just a Chalice type of day, you know? So it really depends. Static Shiv, bonus attack speed being nerfed by 5%. All right, that's pretty fair. Hyper roll changes, don't really care, but it's just ZZ route changes. Let's go on to the bug fixes. Eternal Winter no longer applies a temporary VFX below the unit when frozen. Fix an issue where Garen with blue buff would stop gaining mana in rare situations. Oh, that's funny. I never noticed that because I never build blue buff on Garen. If you guys want the best item builds, go to my website, bunnymuffins.lol/meta. You will never see blue buff on a Garen. Frozen Heart generated by Scrap will now properly remove its attack speed slow when its holder dies. Caitlyn's and Fiora's abilities will now properly cast when targeting an invulnerable unit. Oh, interesting. Double Up, there will now be a winning team visible during the victory sequence, even if all teams were reduced to 0 health in the final battle. Double Up, players no longer continually take massive damage after surrendering. And Seraphine's tooltip now specifies that she can cast at the largest group of enemy units. I thought she always said that, but I guess not. Academy Heart's tooltip now states that it grants a Katarina. And then Jinx no longer incorrectly burns enemies for 2.5% of their max health instead of 2% at 1 star. Oh yeah, because they're making all the buffs kind of consistent with each other. Jinx's tooltip now properly reflects that she burns 2, 3, 4% max health per second rather than 2, 2.5, and 3%. And then in 11.24, we intended to nerf melee Jace's bonus armor and MR, but it never went through. However, we're happy with the power level of 40 bonus armor and MR, so we're keeping this number. Interesting. Notice how last patch a lot of people were backlining Jace instead of frontlining him, or just not playing Jace at all. It's a lot of these ghost buffs and nerfs that you don't realize, but it affects your play, which is kind of interesting. So one thing they didn't touch really was, I guess they did touch Jinx at the end, but I feel like Scrap is going to be pretty decent. Innovator might be more playable, but you need 7 Innovator whenever you're playing late game Innovator, so it's kind of hard. One thing they did not touch actually is Jhin. I don't think they touched an item he uses, and they did not touch the actual champion. And all of these like augments, he doesn't really care about that much. So Jhin probably like going to be pretty good, right? Because Urgot, Kaisa, Galio all got nerfed. So if you see a lot of Jhin players, one counter that is really funny is playing Zyra, because Zyra counters snipers so hard because she always targets the backline and stuns like a ton of units. So if you see a lot of people going like for sniper because Jhin is probably going to be really good, yeah, just play Zyra. But in terms of everything else, like maybe Samira comes back. They did do a lot of buffs to Imperials. Whether it's enough to really bring her to like A tier or even S tier, it might be. I personally am a big Samira fan because she is fun to play. So if I had to guess, this patch is actually going to be really hard to guess because they completely like gutted everything. Will people even be playing Socialite? I'm not really too sure. One thing they didn't touch is also share the spotlight. That one's probably good. Let's look at Socialite changes again. So in the trades, they only nerfed Socialite mana regen. So the damage buff is still there. And then they nerfed the specific champions, which mainly was Kaisa and Tahm Kench. Tahm Kench is still going to do the same amount of damage, so Socialite Tahm Kench is probably still going to be really good. Socialite Kaisa, because Morello got nerfed, it's still probably going to be playable, but maybe it's like B+ tier. It's really tough to say because Guardian Angel also got nerfed. Maybe she dies before casting if she like respawns, you know? So a lot of those casts that you used to get, you might not get anymore. However, she's still cast while in the Guardian Angel stasis, so it's still like pretty good on her, you know? So I guess Socialite might be like A-, B+ around there. I feel like Jin's gonna be really good. Urgot probably still is playable. It's probably, instead of being like the best comp, it's gonna be maybe like low S or high A tier if I had to guess. So I guess not too much is going to change. Your augment choices are going to change a lot though, like Ascension being nerfed a little bit. Yone is probably still going to be good, especially with Rapid Fire Cannon. He's probably the only champion that used Rapid Fire Cannon in like maybe 1 out of 5 games or something like that, 1 out of 10 games. So maybe Yone, Jhin, those are going to be kind of the prime guys if I had to guess. Arcanist, can they make a comeback? You do get Swain now instead of Twisted Fate when you get the augment, but Spellblade doesn't really, you shouldn't play around Spellblade whenever you play Arcanist, but maybe because the Socialites are getting nerfed, they're being more played. And also because like you'll more realistically get like a 4-cost carry instead of 5-cost carry. Maybe Lux is back in the meta because of that. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you guys think is gonna like shoot way up in terms of what's gonna be the best comp in the patch? Of course, I'll be updating the comps list on Friday, But I'd say like it's hard to rate this patch. I didn't like a lot of the changes, but I kind of get why they needed to do them. It was just such a big patch, so obviously I like some things, don't like some other things. I think I give it like a 5 out of 10 or something like that. Yeah, not really too sure. But yeah, I'll see you guys later. Hope you guys enjoyed, and yeah, wait till Friday.